Hi, I'm Deborah.
And I'm Lawrence, and I'm sick.
Yeah, actually we're both sick, but I'm used to being sick because I'm sick all the time because of the medicine.
Yeah, well, I'm suffering
My MS,
here.
My MS
all
medicine
right.
makes me sick all the time. I know you are. You're like never sick, and you seem really sick. But you were just at your computer, so.
Because I don't care about myself. I don't care about resting. I should, but...
Anyway, so today we're doing a video on 504 plans for school. So I guess the first question is, why ask your school or school district to create a 504 plan if you are a kid, or you have a child who has depression and or anxiety? And there are a lot of concrete reasons which we'll go over, but I think the first reason that comes to my mind is actually not as concrete, and that is to change the attitude of the teachers. One thing we ran into with Lawrence's that we realized when we had the 504 plan done for Lawrence's migraine is that it would help the teachers to understand what was going on with him. You said, for instance, that you had trouble with teachers when you put your head down on your desk, thinking that you just weren't being cooperative or weren't engaging in the class and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I got in trouble a lot last year for either being distracted, just not properly paying attention, or
and
a lot of the time I just put my head down and just did nothing.
And it's so teachers get annoyed, understandably, if kids aren't participating, but sometimes there are good reasons. And the thing is also, the 504 plans usually call for the teachers being educated as far as the disability, about the disability, so they'll understand it. And because a lot of educators are not, they can't be expected to understand every single disability really fully, but this makes sure that one aspect of this makes sure that they do understand the disability, at least to some extent. So I guess the next question is pretty basic. What is a 504 plan? So a 504 plan is basically a blueprint that the school creates with input from the parents and usually from the doctor that diagnosed the depression or anxiety. So it's basically a blueprint to supporting the child with the disabilities in school and removing the barriers to learning. You may wonder about using the term disability in reference to anxiety or depression. Anxiety and depression, mood disorders and anxiety disorders are considered disabilities. They're frequently referred to as invisible disabilities. So I guess the next question is, why is it, are you still?
I'm awake.
Why is it called a 504 plan? And I'm going to have to read from that. So Section 504 is a federal law designed to protect the rights of individuals with disabilities and programs and activities that receive federal financial assistance from the U.S. Department of Education. Section 504 provides no otherwise qualified individual with a disability in the United States shall solely by reason of his or her disability be excluded from their participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. So this kind of leads into the next question, which is, why do you ask for a 504 plan instead of an IEP? So an IEP, an individualized education program, is not always, but more often needed when a child needs educational assistance
when they
specifically.
have like a learning disability or something.
Right, they need either special education or individualized instruction. But so in most cases, when you're talking about depression and or anxiety, they need accommodations. They don't need specialized education. So and for this reason, you should have it should be less complicated, and you should face less resistance from a school district when you ask for a 504 plan, because for the most part, they are not going to have to spend money. They're not going to have to use a special education teacher or a tutor or anything like that. It's really just about accommodations. So some, for instance, suggested accommodations would be, so for instance, for anxiety, provide classroom seating where the child is most comfortable. So if they're most comfortable in the front of the room, in the back of the room, in the middle, on the side next to the window, whatever. Offer written instructions for assignments in addition to spoken instructions. And actually that would have helped if we had done one for ADHD, that's for sure. Let the students sit near the back of the room or near an exit during assemblies. Some students, especially with anxiety, sometimes with depression, may have a real problem with crowds and need to know that they're close to the exit, especially if they are worried about having an anxiety attack. And then another possible accommodation for anxiety is a permanent pass that will let them leave a room when necessary without having to check with the teacher in case of the impending anxiety attack. So for depression, there are a couple of things. For instance, one thing would be allow the use of a tape recorder during a lecture. Now, a lot of people don't know that depression can cause a problem with concentration, a problem with focusing. So
that explains a lot.
Yeah, so that's something, for instance, an example of how it would help just to have the 504 plan, so then the teachers will...
I'm on the verge of death.
I know. So another thing to consider for accommodations in a 504 plan for a child with depression would be side effects from medication and handling those. So maybe, for instance, they're not allowed normally to have a drink with them in the class. If they have dry mouth from a medication, then the 504 plan would say, yes, they're allowed to have a beverage. I mean, that's something that would happen just at UC Berkeley where I work, because a lot of the classrooms don't allow any kind of drinks. So a couple things you need to understand is there are only certain things that the school districts have to do for 504 plans by law. So the information, for instance, our 504 plan, what happened with that is we basically stop.
What? I'm just trying to rest.
So, for instance, when we had to do the 504 plan for your migraines, we just, I believe, emailed the principal, and we had to make a formal request by email, but then she set it up, and we brought documentation, etc. So,
and it was perfectly
honestly,
fine.
But that was easy. It's not going to be that easy in every single school district, because let's see, the law doesn't even require that the plan be written or have parent input. Okay, so there are a lot of holes in the law as far as I hate MS. I can't remember the word.
What? Which word?
Oh, I hate MS. It makes me forget words. As far as implementation, so in some school districts, you're going to have to be pushier than you would be in others. So one site that has an amazing amount of information, which is really good, including how to follow up to make sure that the plan is working and is being implemented, is understood.org. So that's one reason we're not going to go into a lot of detail, for one thing, because we're not experts, but also because
I'm dying.
Because this website covers everything. But so most school districts, however, will use written 504 plans. Ours, when we had Lawrence's done first migraine, I think she had software a software program that she was asking the questions.
I'm dying.
He's not dying. And plugging in the answers into, and it created the plan. But so 504 plans, have certain specific elements. All of them will have certain specific elements. One of them obviously is the diagnosis. Another one obviously is what steps, what accommodations need to be taken. But that's pretty much bare bones. So we're also going to include a link to a sample 504 plan, below, a sample 504 letter, and for you to write as the parent, and a sample 504 letter for the doctor to write. So the steps you're going to take to start the 504 plan process is, one thing you need at a minimum is a diagnosis from the doctor. And you're going to also need to have all supporting documentation for the diagnosis. So, for instance, with Lawrence's migraine, we had tons of documentation from UCSF. If we had done one for his ADHD, we would have brought, the tests that the doctor ran, for ADHD, and the diagnosis. And I think there was also something from his kindergarten teacher filled out talking about, that the doctor
I was annoying and wouldn't shut up.
She was a wonderful kindergarten teacher, actually. She was the one who suggested he get diagnosed. But anyway, the doctor had her fill out a questionnaire. So we would bring that too for the 504 plan. Stuff like that. Everything you have. And hopefully, if you're lucky, the doctor will also be able to write the letter requesting specific accommodations. Most psychologists will be able to do this. So it's something that you can't be shy about. You have to, if they don't suggest it, then you should ask if they can do it. This is something they should be able to do. So you're going to then make a formal written request for a 504 plan. So address this to whoever the 504 coordinator is. Each district has to have one. They may be on site in the school, or they may be somewhere else in the district, and you can find out who they are by talking to the principal. So I realize we're kind of skimming over a lot of information here really quickly. We may do a follow-up for with some more in-depth stuff, but Lawrence is really sick, and I don't want to make him wait any longer than necessary. So we hope this has been helpful, and if you have any questions, please feel free to post them below, and we'll get whatever information we can get you. And so we'll see you next time. Are you still alive?